He was betrayed by the very master he served, sliced into thousands of pieces. His heart ripped from his chest to power up his master's daughter. By all logic, Eugene should be dead. Instead, he returned as an anomaly. Now he has no mana, heart, and absolutely no mana. Yet the only thing he has is his handsome-looking face and also his beautiful magic. Well, that's the reality. Until he tries to save people, they scream in terror. Beneath that eldritch horror exterior lies the gentlest soul in the magical world. Welcome to Archmage Curriculum. Yes, bro, you are handsome. War, famine, loss of resources, and climate change. The man explained that they won't have to suffer from these problems any longer. From this moment on, they will stop standing by, as they had for centuries, and step forward to help the people directly. In the United Nations conference, the man declared that on behalf of all mages, he promised this in his name as the Archmage Jung-Ui-Hyuk. In this world, when humanity's own mistakes were driving civilizations to ruin, mages appeared. And the problems everyone thought were hopeless disappeared like magic. No, they were solved by magic itself. The world, now saved by magic, entered a golden age like never before. And Jung-Ui-Hyuk, the archmage who led the mages and shared magic with the world, became the greatest, most honored, and beloved person in the world. But even so, there were still far too many problems that needed magic. Jung said that he couldn't solve them all on his own, so he needed more righteous and wise mages to help him. Looking at a boy, he said that he needed his help, promising that as the greatest archmage, he will make the boy the second greatest archmage. Asking him, when that time comes, will he promise to help him? Extending his pinky towards the boy named Eugene. Eugene took his master's finger and made a promise that he would, smiling happily. 26 years later, in a dark hallway, a girl was calling out to her teacher as he looked at her with a horrified expression. She was crying, begging him to save her. As she crawled on the floor, she said that something was wrong. She couldn't move her legs. The man looked at her, seeing her lower body looking like it had completely melted away as a hand slowly approached them. As the hand touched the girl, her head began melting away as she screamed for the figure to wait, asking him to give her one last chance. As the hand completely melted her away, leaving the man disturbed, he jumped back, unable to believe that it was real. As a giant, creepy figure approached him from the shadows, he thought about how he had always believed that it was just a childish ghost story. Someone who went around finding mages and destroying them with his base-seer magic in horrific ways. The archmage Jung-Ui-Hyuk's one mistake, his abandoned disciple Eugene. The man screamed at the figure not to come any closer, saying that if it wanted something, it should stay there and talk. As the figure approached, the man shot a fireball at it, screaming for it not to come any closer. The fireball hit the monster called Eugene right in the face as the man tried to run away. He thought he could believe no matter what happened in this world because there was magic. But that thing, that hideous thing, couldn't be magic. Suddenly, Eugene grabbed hold of the man's head as he started melting him away. In a dark room, a crowd of people had gathered around a door, wondering what the noise was all about. They couldn't see anything, thinking if this really was a rescue. Just then, with a clank, the door opened as they all happily shouted that the nightmare was finally over. But from the door, Eugene suddenly crept in, saying with a smile that he had found them. Soon, the police arrived at the scene with ambulances. An officer informed a woman that everyone was in a severe state of shock as they were being carried away. But all the kidnapped victims were alive and not in danger. But looking at the traces in the building, no matter what, they still couldn't get used to it. A pile of bodies lay in the building, all melted together, yet still alive. They knew only one mage who could do something like this. Suddenly, a cheerful voice called out to Detective Kimson. With a tense face, she greeted the man. As Eugene walked up to her, thanking them for all the hard work while he was still dragging around something. Eugene asked Kim about the kidnapped people, as she told him not to worry for everyone's life was safe. Eugene was relieved to hear this since when he had opened the door, they had all started screaming and fainting, saying that it was so chaotic that they wouldn't believe it. He had thought that they had been tortured, so he called the police immediately, but he was worried that they might have been too late. Picking up the thing he was carrying, he explained that it was the mages who had kidnapped and locked up homeless people and runaways, forcing them to process magic materials. Eugene couldn't believe that people who called themselves mages would do such a thing, saying how terrible it must have been for the kidnapped people to be in such panic as the mages who were all melted together started apologizing, begging Eugene to lift the spell. Eugene told them not to worry as after a night's sleep, they will be back to normal, telling them to reflect on what they had done. He started compressing all of them into a small ball, handing it over to an officer, saying that it will be easier to transport them like this. Mage Eugene. Both his looks and magic were unsettling and creepy, but he was kind and nosy. It was overwhelming. Thinking about how much he had helped them, Kim realized that they couldn't judge people by their appearance. Bowing down, she thanked Eugene for his help. Ujun told her that there was no need for her to bow her head, for when a mage causes a problem, it is only right for another mage to fix it, saying that if she ever needed anything, she just needed to reach out. Kim was thinking about how hard it was to look past his face. Eugene then told her that these days there were rumors of a serial killer traveling around the country. People were anxious, so they were keeping tabs as much as they could. People said that his face was so horrifying that it left them speechless, and that he butchered people till they were unrecognizable, saying that they needed to stop him before there were innocent victims, asking Kim to let him know right away if they find any clues. Detective Kim thinking whether she should tell him that the rumors were about him. Eugene was then surprised by how much time had passed. Kim asked if he had any plans. Yoo-jun explained that he was going to start the thing he was getting ready for, noting how he should give Kim one too. As he started rustling through his pocket, Eugene handed her a flyer, asking her to spread the word as much as possible. With that, he excused himself, waving her goodbye as he left. Kim then took a look at the flyer, getting shocked by what she was seeing, as she wondered if Eugene realized his situation at all, wondering if he was really going to do this. As Yoo-jun walked away, smiling. 30 years after the mages, led by Jung Wee-hook, declared their arrival, magic became essential to almost every industry, from food to medicine, culture, and protection, to even weather control. And still, there weren't enough mages. At the city center, a voice rang out telling the people that they needed their help, saying that with systematic education and their know-how, they will guide their magical talents, asking them to become a mage who shines a light on the world. This was the message of Director Choi Isaac, the man who worked with the authorities in magic education. But below that giant billboard stood a strange-looking man, inviting people to join the Eugene Magic Academy, explaining that they taught various kinds of magic that would help them with the entrance exams, employment, and starting a business. Eugene had worried about this a lot. Even if he couldn't be with his teacher, he wondered how he could keep the promise he had made to him. Even with so many problems left that needed magic, so much magic that was meant to make a better world was still being used to hurt and exploit others. He had tried to fix things case by case when they appeared, but that could never solve the root of the problem. There had to be something he could do. Eugene wondered about it, sitting on a park bench, thinking about what he could do as an archmage's disciple. He wanted to make a real contribution to the world, something that could have as big an impact as possible. Just then, Eugene noticed something. He saw a teacher leading a group of children, telling them all about their surroundings. But then, the woman froze up as she saw Eugene. The IDs asked her why she wasn't moving as she tried to get them away from Eugene. But looking at them, Eugene had finally found it. The way to increase righteous, smart, and kind mages who will dedicate themselves to the world. Handing out a flyer for his school to a scared woman, he asked her if her child had ever dreamed of becoming a mage, telling her how learning magic during adolescence helped with creativity, focus, emotional growth, and character building. Eugene thought that if he could raise the mages himself, it could work. He tried to explain more about his school to the woman, but she just ran away with her child. Eugene thought that it was a given, as one would need to think carefully about their child's education. But more importantly, he hadn't handed out a single flyer yet, as hardly anyone was coming his way. Thinking that people must really be busy these days, walking away so fast that he couldn't even talk to them. He needed a way to get their attention as his eyes suddenly fell on something. Suddenly, a crunching sound filled the place, with people turning around to look at what was making the noise. The people saw Eugene grow larger than anything they had ever seen. Eugene thought about how he had to grow even bigger as his body started expanding. The bigger he was, the more flyers he could hand out, having taken inspiration from a flailing tube man as tentacles started growing out of him. For the final touch, he just needed to transform the flyers a little. With that, he started handing out flyers to the people. But everyone ran away from the gigantic monster that was before them. He stopped the people by putting the flyers before them with his tentacles, asking people to join his school, with his mouth appearing on the flyer itself. Eugene was excited by this, wondering why he hadn't thought about it sooner. Attention-grabbing entertainment was basic marketing after all. When he was little, his teacher had taken him to an amusement park to see the tall clowns. It had been such a fun and memorable experience for him. Giving people happy, unforgettable experiences through magic was one way to use magic for good. Suddenly, a loud voice came from behind, calling him a psychoker mage who murdered mages and non-mages alike, confusing Eugene. Suddenly, a fireball came crashing into Eugene's head, burning it. A man was startled by this, falling before Eugene, but Eugene kicked him out of the way before falling on the ground. The attacker said that he had come to see why it was so noisy in front of his academy, surprised to see it was the infamous murder monster. The man said that it was a school for future mages, asking Eugene how he could dare to make trouble here. The people were surprised to see that the director of the Prime Academy, Choi Ok, was here, saying that he was a veteran battle mage, so they could relax. The people started praising Choi as he thought that this was a good time for some publicity. He wondered if he should have waited a little bit longer, for he did not think that a basic bombing spell would blow Yukjun's head clean off. He should have used more impressive spells for the visuals, but the crowd suddenly grew confused. A voice came from above Chi, saying that using magic like that in the city was dangerous, and it was lucky that only he got hit. Choi jumped back, seeing Eugene, who was now standing before him. He had clearly seen his skull crack, wondering how he was totally fine before Yukjun grabbed him by his face. Eugene then said that it must be him, the so-called serial killer who had been hurting innocent people with his magic, saying how since his face looked okay, he wasn't so sure. But when he saw the people screaming and running away, yelling that the serial killer was here, he was convinced, calling Choi a crazy monster. But the biggest, most unforgivable reason was that no one but a brutal criminal would blast a stranger's head with magic. Questioning if Choi had learned magic only to use it for this, because there was no way a normal person would explode the head of an innocent person, he then started melting away Choi's head, saying that he would pay for his crimes, telling him to reflect and search his soul for redemption. A few moments later, Eugene notified Detective Kim about this, saying that everyone should feel safer now, as Choi lay on the ground with his upper body melted and his legs still shaking. It was time to get back to publicity, but Eugene was surprised to see that there was no one around at a different place. Two people were looking at their phones, thinking how creepy Eugene was. They couldn't believe that someone like that walked around in broad daylight, wondering if he had used magic to disguise himself, as there was no way that was his real face. There had been rumors that Eugene had been the Archmage's disciple, and they were concerned whether it was true. The girl took the phone away, saying that they could just ask someone, walking up to a girl. As they noticed that she was finished working, she asked her friend if he had forgotten who they worked for, as their boss was Young Wee Hook's own daughter and disciple. The girl ran over to the mage, asking her to take a look at the phone. The opponent before her tried to attack her one last time, but was put down immediately with her single finger. The girl asked her boss if she recognized the man in the photo, saying how there had been rumors that this man had been the Archmage's disciple. The man thought that this was pointless, and they were only going to get yelled at. Even though the Archmage has many disciples, they couldn't believe that some no-name would pretend to be his disciple. But their boss, looking at the phone, immediately recognized it as Eugene. They were shocked that she really did know him, with the man telling her to be more careful. They asked their boss if she was mad, only to see her crush the phone into pieces. The man screamed to see his phone being destroyed, as the girl apologized to her for getting her mad. But the girl was sure of it. Even after all these years, she could recognize that face anywhere, as she recalled her time together with the Archmage and Eugene. Finally, she had a chance to prove herself to her father. Among all his disciples, she would prove that she, as the daughter of the Archmage, was the best, and Eugene will be the proof she needs. Back at the city center, Eugene put Choi's body back together. He apologized to Choi for the misunderstanding, saying that he had no idea that he was the director of an academy. Choi accepted the apology, asking Eugene to leave quickly as he would like to rest now. Eugene said that he was sorry for promoting right in front of his academy, but if it bothered him, they could have just talked it out instead of attacking him with magic, making Choi frustrated that she would have done so if Eugene looked like someone he could reason with. Detective Kim then asked Eugene to leave things like killers to the police, saying that he should focus on his new academy and that if they ever needed his help, they would reach out. Eugene agreed to her proposal, saying that he would then continue his promotion elsewhere, with Kim saying that she would be cheering him on. They then told him to take care, waving goodbye as she thought that even though he was not a kid, she couldn't help but worry. Eugene then declared that he would try to promote his school in front of the elementary school, next making the police's faces drop in fear. He liked the sound of teacher Eugene, determined to gather plenty of students and get his academy started, as he wanted to be a teacher who raised great mages. The little girl did not know if she could call it magic, but she was happy that she had finally performed a spell. In excitement, she showed it to her dad. Her dad praised her, proud that she was his daughter. He told Aine to remember that being special wasn't about being satisfied just because she had something. Talent only truly shone when she used that gift for something worthy of it, saying that she had to become someone special who could match the talent that he had given her. Aine happily said that she would become an archmage like him, as she was his daughter. Then asked her father where her uncle Eugene was, as she wanted to brag to him right away. But her father hesitated to tell her something. Back in the present day, Choi called Yugon a complete lunatic, saying that he turned people into mush with some unknown kind of magic, and how he still wasn't able to get that creepy face out of his head. Choi asked Ain if that monster was really a former disciple of the Archmage Jung. An explained that if he could count a war orphan that the Archmage took in out of pity and raised as a disciple, then yes. But she wanted to focus on how they still weren't able to understand the kind of magic Eugene was using. Choi said that if he hadn't let his guard down, then he wouldn't have been defeated so easily. He asked Ain to let this go as there were too many rumors already. But this time he was prepared, having gathered the best graduates from his academy's combat track. So no matter what bizarre magic Eugene tried to pull, as long as they had her, they would win. But An told him that he was mistaken. She had come here to get information on Eugene, not to hear such a long story about how Choi had lost. Getting up, she prepared to leave, saying that there was no need to see her out as Choi tried to stop her. The men Choi had hired suddenly blocked the entrance, telling Ain that it was pretty rude to visit someone and act like this. They said that it was fine if A couldn't help, but her attitude was uncalled for, asking her to apologize to Choi. I tried to talk with them, but the group did not listen as they started passing mocking comments. Choi tried to stop them, telling them to let her go nervously, but the men just kept saying how An was acting prideful only because she was the Archmage's daughter, making her irritated. After a few moments, Ain opened the door, telling Choi that before teaching his students magic, he should teach them manners. With Choi sitting in the now-destroyed room with all of his men, having passed out after having been beaten badly. Meanwhile, in a cafe, Eugene was laughing while looking at his computer. A man sitting near him was irritated by the constant laughter, angrily walking up to Eugene to talk with him. He asked Eugene if he thought he owned the cafe or something, telling him to quiet down. But as Eugene turned, the man went quiet, seeing his face. Taking out his earbuds, Eugene apologized, saying that he must have been quite loud. But the man and woman, still shaken from fear, apologized for disturbing him and told him to enjoy himself. Eugene thought about how the algorithms were really scary, wondering how much procrastination he had done while looking for materials. Previously, he had no plan at all, so he was totally lost on where to start. So he tried looking up social media marketing like Detective Kim had told him to. Getting back to work, this time he was determined to stay focused and look up resources. But just then, he noticed something on his feed. As he was staring at his laptop, a tap came from behind. Turning back in a panic, he tried to explain that he was going to watch this one thing and get back to work, startling the girl behind him. Seeing as how she had fallen down, he apologized to her. The girl asked him if he was Eugene as he answered her. The two explained that there was someone who really wanted to meet him, asking if he could come with them for a moment. On the phone, the man informed his boss that Eugene was coming along quietly with them, asking him not to do anything suspicious as they were in the middle of the city. He then cut the call, saying that they were going to grab a cab and be there soon. Ugjan said that he was curious about who he was meeting, asking the girl if she could give him a hint, but she said that they wanted him to be really surprised, thinking about how she had gotten excited and spoken to him first, which she wasn't supposed to. Eugene kept on thinking who it could be, as the man behind him wondered what made him look like that. It was not just the way Eugene looked. The whole vibe he gave off was putting him on edge. Who knew when he would show his true colors? And if he did anything suspicious, they would have to act right away as he prepared a spell. He had thought that this would be a simple escort job, but he didn't expect it to feel this tense and suffocating. Sometime before this, Ayn had briefed the two about Eugene. He was currently 34 years old. At around age 4, he was a war orphan living alone when the Archmage had taken him in and raised him to become a mage. He worked as a lead researcher at the Magic Technology Research Foundation and then went missing about 14 years ago. The two were surprised that he was really the Archmage's disciple, with the girl being shocked to see his childhood photo. She wondered how a cute kid could turn into something that terrifying. Ain explained that while the two brought Eugene here, she would finish her preparations. The man asked her if she could tell them what she was planning to do once they brought him here. A explained that on the day Eugene disappeared, her father told her that Eugene had disappointed him. The disciple who had always stayed by his side and had his favor had turned his back on him and vanished. And now, after all these years, he suddenly showed up again. She was going to find out whether he had any intention of threatening or disgracing the Archmage. And if there was even the slightest chance that he did, she would stop him, breaking the pill in her hand. So once they brought him here, she would handle everything herself, asking the two to focus on locating him and transporting him to her. The girl was still anxious about Eugene, wondering why he had been glaring at her this whole time. It was so creepy she could barely breathe, but she thought that there was no way Eugene would do something out in the open like this. Just then, Eugene suddenly leaned in near her ear, saying that he finally understood. He asked the girl if she worked with Ein. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out his phone, trying to show her a video, but was shocked as the girl suddenly cut his hand off with a spell. She said that there had been a change of plans, telling the man that they were going to subdue Eugene and drag him in. The man knew it would end up like this as he activated his spell and slammed Eugene into the pavement. Looking at his body on the ground, they realized that they were in trouble. The man shouted at the girl, saying how A had just told them to bring him in, and they had blown it, worried if Eugene was dead. He asked what had possessed her to cut off his arm like that, as she said that she was scared as he was staring at her and reaching out with his hand. But Eugene's hand suddenly began moving by itself. They heard Eugene's voice as the hand reattached itself to his body, apologizing for startling them as it wasn't intentional. Picking his body up, he said that no matter how upset they were, this was a bit too much of a way to blow off steam. Before leaving, they had asked Ein what they should do if Eugene attacked them first, wondering what would be the best way to deal with it. There were rumors that he had killed quite a few mages, and he was a former disciple of the Archmage, so they were not sure people at their level could handle him. I told them not to worry about it. Even if his magic talent was outstanding, Eugene was still just a researcher. The man Gui was a top-class Cody guard who successfully protected high-ranking executives from countless assassination attempts. And the girl Jun Hai was a veteran mercenary who fought through terrorist, mage-infested war zones on her own. They were nothing like the poser Choi, asking the two to trust her judgment for choosing them as her partners. But she still told them that if anything were to happen, they were to respond while minimizing the damage and contact her immediately. When An arrived at the scene, she was disturbed to see the people running away in panic as she witnessed Eugene melting Go and Ju together with his magic. Looking at the creepy man with an ice spear still in his head, turning her friends into mush, A immediately attacked Eugene, knocking him back. She rushed towards Go and Ju, asking if they were okay. Go warned her that whatever magic Eugene was using made it so that no matter how much they hit him, he kept regenerating, and it could cut through their defense magic like it was nothing. Most of all, if he touched them, it was over, calling him a complete monster. A crowd then gathered around them, recognizing Ayin as she prepared a spell. Casting it, she said they should change locations, teleporting them away from the city. The group then arrived at a wrecked town area. Looking at A, Eugene was surprised that he wasn't seeing things after all, excitedly remarking at how much she had grown. He said that it had been a long time, realizing that after 14 years she must be 22 now, asking her if she remembered her uncle Eugene. Noticing her hat, he said how her dad must have given it to her, happy that she had managed to become a mage in the end, remembering how he used to cheer her on. But Ein asked her why he had done this to the people she had sent. Eugene explained that when he first saw them, he made a mistake, and he guessed that they did not like it because they started throwing spells at him. He was worried people around them would get hurt, so he just tied them down until they calmed down. A said that she didn't really care about the details. She was wondering what reason she would come up with to fight him, but since he was already broken, she guessed that she did not need one. Activating her mage gear and bringing out her staff, she was enraged at him for having done this to her employees and for all the trouble he had caused, hiding behind the name of a disciple of the Archmage, confusing Eugene. So that's why he had to fall to her as she began dual casing and preparing her spells to attack. Her skills were now the proof that she, and not he, had taken the place at her father's side, telling Eugene not to talk as if he were close to her as she began attacking him. Back at the Prime Magic Academy, people were cleaning up Choi's office up as a man shouted at Choi that this was an insult to him and their whole academy. They did not care if A was the Archmage's child. They had to put her in her place. Choi said that he knew his people were upset, but told them to let it go, explaining that she was the blood of the world's greatest mage, the Archmage Young, asking if they thought that she only inherited his money. Choi had once ended up on the same team as her by chance on a mission to wipe out a mage crime syndicate. That was the first time in his life that he felt his magic was pathetic. Looking up at Ain, who had uprooted the entire area by herself and changed the surroundings themselves, he understood that the gap between them was so big it was hard to believe that they were both mages. That is why he stayed quiet even after being treated like he was nothing, saying that even if every combat mage in their academy, including him, charged at her, He couldn't imagine them so much as scratching a single hair on her head. Back at the compound where Ain and Eugene were, we see a battle taking place. Go and Ju are stunned by what they are seeing. Ain's magic was basically considered a natural disaster, so the idea of her losing was almost impossible as she cut apart Eugene into pieces. While regenerating himself, Eugene thought that something was strange. Looking at An, he wondered why she was so angry. Forming his mouth behind her head, he asked her if something bad had happened, saying that the Ain he knew wasn't the type to throw a fit just because she was in a bad mood. As Ain blasted his mouth away, telling him to shut up, she did not want a traitor like him, calling himself her uncle. He had betrayed her father and disappeared without a word. Then he shamelessly showed up again and dragged the name of a disciple of the Archmage through the mud. So as her father's true disciple, she was just punishing him as she basted him with multiple spells, tearing apart his body. Eugene was surprised to hear about his betrayal. He wondered if he had done something to upset Ain enough to make her fling attack spells at him the moment they had met after all these years. Just then, Eugene remembered something. Back when A was young, she was unable to use magic. Eugene asked her what her dad had said, and she answered that he had told her to wait a little longer. But she was upset that all the other kids with talent had already started learning basic magic, even when they were younger than her. With tears in her eyes, she asked Eugene what she should do, for if she really couldn't be a mage, then she would disappoint her father. But Eugene stopped her. He told her not to worry, as she was the daughter of the greatest archmage in the world, and he loved her more than anything else. He assured her that he and her dad would figure something out and turn her into a mage as amazing as her father. And when she could finally use magic, he and she would study magic together, promising her that he will train her so well that her dad will be blown away, making us stop crying as she held his pinky, sealing their promise. Looking at the finger now, Eugene was sorry. He was sorry that he couldn't keep that promise. But what bothered A was something else. She had thrown every kind of magic she could at him, and not a single spell worked. Wondering if the thing that Eugene was now could even die as he pulled himself back together from the pieces, with the only thing on his mind being that he was not going to die without seeing a become a great mage. But Eugene had also realized something else. Ain was gripping her chest while panting heavily. She had panicked and burned through too much mana. Calming herself down, she thought that whatever that regeneration magic was, Eugene was overconfident in it. He looked relaxed and was not reacting now, but unless you were an archmage, magic had limits, and there were plenty of spells that could restrain a regen mage. But first, she needed to slow down her heartbeat. Just then, however, Eugene called out to her, saying that he was sorry that it had taken him this long to realize this. He had been so happy to see her that he had completely forgotten, saying that she must have wanted to show off all the magic she had worked so hard on while he was gone. Shocking her, he told how she must have wanted to show him how skilled and amazing she had become, all on her own. Saying that seeing her handle such a wide range of spells like this had shocked him, making him imagine how much she must have practiced to get here and how her dad must be so proud of her. I remembered how her father had praised her when she had finally learned magic. She had managed to get into a magic school as a top new student within a year. He said that she was going to be the best mage of all of her father's disciples. So this was the bare minimum. He still had to teach her a lot more. Her father encouraged her to keep working hard, saying that he would be waiting for the day she became a disciple he could be as proud of as Eugene. As proud of as Eugene. Those were the words that clung to her. She never let magic out of her mind as she studied, training on the brink of death and building up her achievements. Her father always praised her efforts and results, but he never once called her his most proud disciple. Even after Eugene, the uncle who had let her father down and disappeared, he still stayed closest in his heart as his most proud disciple. Eugene was still looking at A with a smile. Actively and specifically praising a student's effort and growth were the student mental care methods he had studied in order to run an academy, thinking that with this much her heart should soften. But An got even more irritated, breaking apart her pill box in her hand. This confused Eugene as An shoved all the pills in her hand into her mouth. Her friends became concerned as her magic began to flare. Even now, all of her works and achievements, everything she had built, were written off by him as a kid showing off. Activating a deadly spell, she told Eugene that if he was watching anyway, then he should try taking on this attack with the great regeneration magic of his. For if this was what it took to shake off her inferiority complex, so be it. Go. And Ju began panicking, asking En to calm down. For if she were to use that spell here, then they would all die. Ugjun was amazed to see En use such a spell. He was excited to see that An had finally managed to climb all the way up to the pinnacle of magic, triple casting. He was incredibly proud of her, wondering how hard she must have had to work to master the magic of this level. As the spell charged up, Eugene was determined to help honor all the effort she had put into it and bear an even greater fruit. AI had finally completed her triple casting, ready to throw it at Eugene. But just then she was shocked as Eugene let out a smile. What she needed right now was not praise as he shot out his hand towards her, merging it together with her arm, shocking Anne. Holding her up, he began advising her on the manual control circuit of her triple spell, saying that if she were to tweak the mana distribution a tiny bit, it would be way more efficient. According to him, what needed right now was someone to point her in the right direction so she could go even further. Go and Ju looked at the sight before them as Eugene dispelled the triple casting, wondering if they should be happy that they survived or afraid of Eugene. Looking at Eugene, lecturing her on and on about her magic, Ain became irritated, breaking her arm free of him. Angry that he still hadn't fixed that habit of his, Eugene was stunned as Ain asked if he still did not understand what he had done wrong, wondering if he was going to say he just wanted to help again. He always nitpicks at every tiny mistake he spots at any time or any place. They were literally fighting each other, and he was still lecturing her, making her wonder how someone could go over 10 years without changing at all. Even when she had baked cookies for her dad's birthday, he was still nitpicking at their taste, making her question why he was taste testing them and giving food critic notes. Not caring at all about how embarrassed she was in front of her dad, shouting at him to stop meddling and patting himself on the back after dumping unnecessary advice on people. Then composed herself, realizing how she had acted. Eugene was still shocked from her words, but then noticed Go and Ju going over to undo what he had done to their bodies. Ain was embarrassed that she had yelled, thinking that if they kept arguing, it was she who was going to look crazy. Changing the topic, Eugene asked Ain when she had first started using magic, for he and her dad had worried a lot about how to help her use magic. Thinking about it a little, Ain said that it was the day after Eugene had left. Suddenly, something dawned on Eugene. Go and Ju were happy to see their bodies return to normal, as As said that they should leave now. Turning to Eugene, she said that whatever he had been doing these days, there were now a lot of mages who were out for him. But she was sure that he would manage. As Eugene stood silent, scratching at the stitches on his neck, she asked him to be careful so that he wouldn't drag down her father's reputation any further. She also said that there was no need for him to go back to the Archmage anymore. For both her and her father, there was no longer an empty place waiting for him. With that, they began getting ready to leave. Ju asking if they were going to leave Eugene here. An then called out to Eugene to begin the teleportation, asking her where he lived so that she could drop him off. She then took out her card to give it to him, saying that if anything happens, he can call her number and not go running to the Archmage. But as Eugene extended his hand to take the card, he suddenly plunged his hand into Ain's body. Ain was too shocked even to react as her friends began panicking. Eugene then suddenly pulled something out of A's body. Digging at his stitches, he could not believe what he was seeing. He had prayed that it would not be true. Remembering the past he had tried so hard to understand. As the Archmage cut his body into pieces, ripping out his heart, he had told himself that there had to be a reason. He had promised himself that he would believe that. But now, holding the same heart in his hands, he wondered how his teacher could take his heart from him. This was something he could never forgive. A man shouted at Jung, asking him what he had done. Jung jokingly said that the man was going to burst his eardrums, asking him if he could talk a little quieter while holding on to a young Eugene. The monkey-looking man was furious that Jung was teaching magic to these inferior humans. The people could not even control the primitive knowledge they had and brought about their own destruction. He had agreed with Jung's plan because he had said that mages should lead humanity, not so he could hand a sword to those who did not deserve it. Jung called the man foolish, telling him to get his wording straight, as mages were humans too, making the man even angrier. Jung explained that while mages had stayed hidden, magic had stayed stagnant as well. So making magic public was not salvation, but a path to coexistence. The monkey man then activated a spell, mocking Jung's words. With a single move of his hand, the man destroyed an entire city area, killing everyone there. Asking Jung if living with mayflies, whose lives they could wipe out with a single wave of the hand, was really coexistence. Jung then called out to the man as Frederick, saying that if he did not trust him, then he should just stay quiet and watch. The times would change, and so would mages. And for all he knew, one of those mayflies he looked down on so much might one day become such a terrifying mage, that even he, the strongest mage alive, might look like nothing. Jung then shielded Eugene as he prepared a spell of his own, saying that before any of that happened, a mere mage had dared to stand against the Archmage, asking Frederick if he knew the price for it. But in the present, An was sleeping on a couch. Opening her eyes, she heard some people talking around her. Jolting awake, she was surprised to see Go and Ju sitting beside her. As she asked where they were, Eugene suddenly appeared before her, asking if she was okay. Startled to see his face, she jumped back. Ju then explained that they were at Yujun's Magic Academy. A was surprised to hear that they were at an academy. Eugene told her that he had decided to open a magic academy and was super busy right now, getting it ready to open. He still had to finish the interior and recruit students, but he was trying his best at promotion. Looking at her chest, Ain realized that there was nothing wrong with her heart. Wondering if he had pulled it out with that weird magic and put it back in, she asked Go and Ju why they were just sitting there casually chatting with the man who had ripped out her heart. As they tried to explain, it was not the case in a panic. Go then explained that Eugene had apparently known about Ayin and also about her heart condition. Hearing this surprised her as she asked Eugene if he had punched a hole through her chest just to check that. Go said that she had used some huge spells today, making him think her heart was under strain. And that's when it went into shock. When she had collapsed, it was Eugene who had panicked and hauled all of them there on his back. Her heart condition was confidential, so they couldn't just take her to a normal hospital. Ain apologized to Eugene for the trouble, saying that they would get going as they did not want to bother him anymore. Getting up, the three of them began to leave. Just then, Eugene stopped us saying that he needed to tell her something important. Looking at Eugene, A told Go and Ju to go on without her. Walking out on the street, the two talked about how A really must have a strong stomach, wondering if growing up looking at a face that creepy just broke her emotions. Suddenly, her terrible attitude made a lot of sense to them. Ju then asked Go why he was looking at the flyer of the man who had ripped their boss's heart out while she was alive. Go wondered if Eugene had lost his mind, wanting to teach students with that face and horrifying magic of his. Still, it had been impressive. Regeneration, which could pierce through defensive magic. Learning from him might not be a bad idea. Ju really questioned if he thought that a mage was going to spill the secrets of their most prized magic just because one paid them. Go then joked that Eugene was just going to ask A to promote his magic academy, as the two joked that it was the kind of magic that even the Archmage's own daughter couldn't do anything about. Just then, they bumped into a man. Apologizing to him, they started walking away. But the man suddenly told them to wait. He said that he had seen them before on the internet, recognizing that they were the mages who worked with the Archmage's daughter, Ain. The two started blushing, thinking that their fame had reached out, asking the monkey-faced old man where he had seen them. Removing his glasses, the man said that young people like them must not recognize him, but he was like a brother to A's father. So basically, he was A's uncle. Back at Yujun's office, A asked him what he had wanted to say. Ujun asked her about how every time she used magic, it put a strain on her heart. A question if her father had told him about it, saying that there was no point in hiding it now and that he was right. If she kept using magic like this, she would probably die before long, making Eugene tense. A said how ironic it was that even though she had inherited this incredible magic talent from her father, she had ended up like this. Her father had called it a rare condition known as mana allergy, explaining that the strain kept building up in her heart and in the end, it would explode and kill her. Eugene let out a chuckle hearing about the excuse of a mana allergy, thinking about how his teacher had come up with a pretty convincing lie. I then asked him if he had ripped out her heart because he was curious about that, saying that he really had the same ridiculous impulses ever. With that, A began to leave, saying that she had a mountain of work to get through. But Eugene grabbed her hand, trying to stop her. He told her that in this world, there were so many things that people needed besides mages. So instead of living as a mage on borrowed time, Ain could find some other job where people needed her, saying that he would help her so that they can find her a place where she can start over again. But Ain told him to let her go. She said that he had crossed the line, reminding him that there was no empty space left for her uncle anymore. So he had no right to meddle in her life, as this was her life on the line. This was the special gift she had received from her father. Being born with this disease was her burden. So it was her problem to deal with. And at this point, any life that wasn't one of a mage was not for her, especially if she was the Archmage's blood and still nothing special. Rather than becoming a human who is not special, despite being the blood relative of a great sorcerer, she would rather die. Thinking about it, Eugene opening a magic academy suited him perfectly. So instead of sticking his nose into her life for no reason, he should focus on all the students who would actually pay to hear him talk. Yoogjun had now become quite upset. He tried to tell Ain the truth, but suddenly her phone rang. Ain answered the call, realizing that Ju had called her, sounding quite strange. Just then, Ain became tense, saying that she was going over right away, telling them to hang on as long as they could. Apologizing to Eugene for the trouble, she rushed out, saying that something urgent had come up. As Eugene stood in the room alone, he regretted not telling her the truth. Back at the lab, when he was the head researcher, they had kept failing in their experiment. Even with every medical spell they knew, when they transplanted a mage's heart into someone born unable to accept mana, they couldn't stop the rejection. If they could just solve this one problem, they could create even more good mages with charisma and wisdom. Young told Eugene that he thought the base premise of his simulation was too extreme. He wanted to put the heart with the highest mana density they had ever seen, embracing the magic power with the highest concentration that they knew into A's body when she wasn't even 8 yet. Eugene said that A was both his teacher's daughter and his precious niece. So of course he would give her the best thing he had. But even if she does gain the ability to use magic, living with an expiration date would defeat the whole purpose. Saying that they should table this method for now, as there must be another way. They will just need to think it through more. But now, even if knew the truth, she would not give up. Then what was he supposed to do? Should he force her to stop? Take measures to prevent her from using magic. This was all because he had allowed his teacher to take his heart. Was going to die because of him. Sitting down, he realized that there was nothing he could choose. It was just like 14 years ago. He was still the same useless coward. Just then, Eugene's doorbell rang as he wondered who it was. At the outskirts of the city, Ain had arrived at where her friends were. A man commented on how, aside from her hair and eye color, she was not that similar, saying that she did not resemble Jung much. But that hat she wore sure did bring back memories for him. A thought how just having to face him was enough for her to feel the pressure. The man had once been her father's right hand, and the traitor who smashed multiple cities while fighting him, Frederick Gamora, the strongest battle mage to ever live. Frederick said that seeing Ain took him back drinking as he spoke, standing before her injured friends whom he had held up with barbed spikes. He said that it made him feel sick. Frederick then threw Go and Ju at her, asking why she had kept them around. As they were so weak, it was embarrassing to use them even as errand runners. Go told Ain to run, saying that she needed to call her father with Ju, telling her that she was sorry for calling her here. He said that she was sending them to the hospital, thanking them for everything till now, shocking them as she teleported them away. Frederick asked if she had enough time to say her goodbyes, telling her to help him out a little. He said that he was on his way to see her father for the first time in ages, and it would be rude of him to show up empty-handed as he activated a spell. Looking at him, Ain got a nervous smile, thinking that she had finally found it. Frederick said that bringing Jung his daughter's neck should make their reunion in 30 years a bit more dramatic. Ain said how he really must not get her father's taste if this is how his old friend acted. And as the Archmage's most loyal disciple, she wouldn't be letting him see her father today, telling him to choose his place of death with honor as she activated her spells. Outside the city hospital, the workers hurried over as they saw 2 injured people appear before them using magic. Seeing them heavily bleeding, they immediately decided to move them to the resuscitation room. But Go had already called someone. Back at Yugjeon's office, Detective Kim said that they had asked the promotion teams for help, asking Eugene to send them a simple summary, and they would put together how to prepare a marketing promotion, saying how it must be a relief, as she was the one who had suggested this to him. Kim had come to check if Eugene was in trouble again, but right now the atmosphere was so intense that it was making her nauseous. He already looked creepy, but when he was gloomy, he looked even more terrifying. Wondering what in the world happened to leave him looking this deflated. She then called out to Eugene, breaking his trance. Eugene apologized that even though she had gone out of her way to help him, he was thinking of dropping the academy plan and looking for something else to do. Kim was stunned, asking why he thought so. Eugene answered that there was a kid who was hurting herself, struggling desperately for her dream, and instead of helping her chase that dream, he had ended up pushing them to give up. Thinking that he had really hurt them in doing so, he had barged in with pointless meddling without even understanding how they felt. When he was supposed to be an educator who taught people, he did not think that this was the right job for him anymore. Kim interrupted him. She said that in her line of work as a detective, she more often than not saw something. They had to break down a door because a burglar was inside to get the victim to safety, and they in turn yelled at them about who was going to pay for the door. She had once rescued someone who was shaking on a bridge about to jump, and they had slapped her asking why she had saved them. There are plenty of people who are clearly in danger but do not realize it or stubbornly look away from it. Asking Eugene if that meant they should just leave them there as her job was to help them anyway, making Eugene think about it. Kim said that Eugene had decided to become an educator, and if someone was in trouble but kept looking away from it, he had to let them know that they were in danger and work it through together, helping them find a way to get through it with him, as that was an educator's duty. Eugene had wanted to do that, but he just did not see a way. As Kim pointed out, there was always a way, for this was a world with magic. So if he tried really hard, he would figure something out. Eugene finally realized it, thinking why had he not thought of it himself? Back where A and Frederick were fighting, the land had been reduced to rubble, and the mountains had holes in them from all the spells they were throwing around. Frederick prepared another spell, throwing a wave of fire at Ain. But Ain responded with a Tier 1 multicasting, throwing mana bolts at Frederick's attacks to block them. Frederick easily stopped it with his finger, but Ain had already appeared behind him. Using Tier 2 magic, she cast multiple spells at once, throwing all of them at him. But Frederick blocked it all with a single barrier. As she struggled to even pass her mana blade through it, he held up a single finger, blasting her away with his magic. While still in the air, A activated a composite spell, mixing Tier 1 and Tier 2 magic. She aimed it at Frederick, throwing an entire mountain at him with telekinesis. As it crashed into the land, destroying the entire area, it buried Frederick in it. A stood back, panting from the overuse of magic as she gripped her chest. But then she heard Frederick's voice, saying how she had used more elements and spell types than an ordinary mage would even dare attempt. The finesse to weave all of them into one, and the overwhelming mana to flip a mountain on its head, really made her a remarkable mage, worthy of the Archmage Jung's blood. Asking if that was the kind of compliment she wanted to hear, as he broke through the mountain with a single finger. Frederick said that even though An was able to use a bunch of spells, not a single one of them was truly solid, saying that he hadn't come here to watch her talent show. Just then, aided her triple casting spell, surprising him. Using her triple run magic, she dragged down the spell with all her might, throwing it at Frederick as it destroyed the entire area. A huge explosion went off as Ain started panting, bleeding from her nose and mouth, thinking that it was finally over. After using her triple rune magic, she had burned through every spell she could use. She was now at her limit, and if she cast even one more spell, her heart would explode. Thinking that this was really the end of her magic and her life, Frederick walked up to her unscathed by her attack. Standing before her, he asked if she was done. At the very least, A had hoped that her last battle and her final struggle would leave her as someone her father could be proud of. But looking at her, Frederick told her to just go home. Surprised to hear this, Frederick explained to her that when he had heard the Archmage's own child was a mage, he was actually curious to see how well he would shape her. But all he had seen from her were cheap tricks, flashy spells with nothing underneath, and some so-called triple rune spell that just stitched 3 rings together, calling it a joke. If this were the level of his own flesh and blood, then Frederick almost felt sorry for Jung, saying that killing a failure like her would just be doing Jung a favor by taking out his trash for him. Hearing Frederick, A was unable to believe what he was saying. Frederick claimed that he would rather die than do anything that made Jung's life easier. He should have known as soon as he saw the level of the underlings he had dragged in as bait, saying that this had totally killed his mood, telling A to go wash up and go to bed. A desperately got up, telling Frederick to finish this, taunting Frederick about how he had said that he would bring her head to her father, saying that she was not done yet, and telling him to come back and fight. For if she were to survive like this, all that would be left for her was a miserable life where she could not use magic. Frederick was irritated by A's whining, saying how she was loud enough to kill him. Looking at her, told her not to make a fuss. For if someone begged him so hard to kill them, even after he had said that he would spare them, then he would gladly finish it. But before he could do something, they were interrupted as Eugene swept in, having finally found Ain. Frederick and Ain were both shocked to see Eugene, who was now standing there smiling. Back at Eugene's office, he had received a call informing him about Frederick. Getting ready to go out, he asked the caller where they were, saying that he would be heading there right away, reassuring them that A will be safe. He apologized to Detective Kim, saying that something urgent had come up, as she told him that he should leave if he was in a hurry. He then asked Kim to hand him one of the flyers for his academy, thanking her as she did. He was sorry for making her worry with his gloomy face earlier, especially when she had taken time out of her busy schedule. Kim told him not to worry as things like this happen, saying that she felt bad for being nosy herself. As Eugene finished writing something on the flyer, he thought about her words, saying that it was thanks to her being nosy that he was able to find courage as he started making a hole in the wall with his magic. He told her that he would contact her again after he finished his urgent business with her, telling him to be safe. Wondering how urgent it was that he was leaving through a window as the hole reshaped itself to become one, Kim thought about how Eugene had seemed to regain his energy, but was confused as to who on earth gets energized with such a creepy look on his face. With Eugene making his way through the air, having transformed his body into a weirdo-looking bird-like monster. Reaching at the location, he realized this must be the spot which he was told about on the phone. Thinking about how much of a mess the area had become, looking like it had been hit by a missile bombardment, worried about how magic had been used to scorch the area to this extent. As he finally spotted An and Frederick, Eugene became relieved, swooping down towards them as he transformed his body back to normal. And just when Ain was about to use a spell, he grabbed her hand, stopping her. Seeing Eugene there, Ain questioned how he had been able to find this place. He answered that Go had called and told him about it, recalling him as the man who worked with her as he informed Eugene that Ain was in danger, saying that he would thank him later. But just then, Eugene's head was blown away completely by an attack spell. Frederick commented on how creepy it was, asking Ain who the beanpole was, saying that interrupting him was one thing, but he looked so hideous that Frederick could not even stand to look at him, so he couldn't hold back in the heat of the moment and attacked him. But Frederick then went silent as Eugene said how his temper was the same back then and now, asking him to wait a moment as he reformed his head back to their surprise. He said that he would deal with him once he was done talking to Ayan as he stabbed her chest once again with his hand. Ayan asked what Eugene was doing, surprised to see him pull out her heart again. Eugene told her to look at her heart, pointing out how it was in a state where it wouldn't be strange if it exploded right now. He started lecturing Ayan on her magic usage again, but Ayan broke her hand free, reminding him that she had told him not to interfere. She shouted at him, asking if he did not understand with his pointless meddling, telling him not to ruin her chance to die as a mage in Young Yi-hik's daughter. But Eugene just looked at her and asked why he shouldn't stop her, shouting, "What kind of adult would look at a kid determined to die and just say, 'Go ahead and leave them be'?" Seeing his serious face, A was speechless. After a moment, she asked him what he wanted her to do. How was she supposed to live like this? This was the only chance she had to be special to her father, saying that there was no other way to prove herself to him except this. She cried that she did not want to die either, but with a heart like this, she could not even dream of becoming a grand mage. So how else was she supposed to become her father's most proud disciple? On hearing her question, Eugene told her that it was why her uncle was here. The man in her heart that her dad had left her, which let her fly through the sky and overturn mountains. They should put that specialness down for a moment. As An sniffled, Ugjun said that if she promised not to give up on life and give her uncle a chance to take responsibility, then no matter what it took, her uncle would make her a grand mage. Cleaning up her tears, she wondered how, even when her father could do nothing, how could Eugene hope to do something? But she swallowed the words in her mouth and accepted his offer, because the person in front of her was the one she so desperately had wanted to become. Taking another look at Eugene, she joked that he was now grabbing someone's heart to threaten them, now saying that she would take a chance on him, asking if she should now call him Master, wondering if maybe this person could let her achieve the dream she had given up on. Hearing her accept, Eugene smiled, saying that the Master sounded a bit old-fashioned, telling her to call him Teacher Eugene just to be trendy, as he smashed her heart in his hands, sending the monocrystals flying. A was shocked to see her heart being torn apart, shouting at Yugjun about what he was doing. But she was surprised that it did not hurt. Eugene thought about how it was good to see his heart after so long, saying that it was shameless. But he still had a favor to ask of it, asking it to beat no longer as his heart, but as A's heart now, as he reformed it into a new form without any mana crystals, putting the new organ back into A's body. Feeling around her chest, I realized that the mana that always overflowed from the heart had disappeared as she could not feel it anymore. Her heart was finally feeling peaceful, with the uncomfortable feeling of it being not her own, having disappeared. She could still live. A smile came onto her face, realizing that now she could live and somehow regain her magic, and even aim to become a grand mage. Ugjun then turned his attention to Frederick, apologizing for keeping him waiting. With An suddenly realizing that they had just been battling, He said that since he was done talking with Ain, he would hear Frederick out if he had some business with them. Frederick, who had been scrolling through his phone, got up saying how it was completely absurd. He did not remember how long it had been since he was ignored like this. Looking at Eugene, he said that he did not have business with An anymore. But there was one thing that bugged him. He called out how Eugene had said that his temper was the same as ever. It bothered him that he spoke as if they had met, saying that he did not remember ever seeing a grosso-looking guy like him. Eugene noted how it had been long enough that he must have forgotten since the last time they saw each other was about 30 years ago, back when he had summed to his master and threw a tantrum, got scolded, and ran away. Hearing this, an angry smile came on Frederick's face, saying how Eugene had an interesting choice of words, wondering why all the brats raised by Jung had such filthy mouths as he gave off an immense aura preparing to fire a spell. Taking off his glasses, he claimed that this would make tearing him apart so much more rewarding. They asked Eugene if he was crazy provoking Frederick like this. He was the strongest battle mage with no equal aside from the Grand Mages. He had made a fuss about saving her, and now he was going to get them both killed. But Eugene reassured her, saying that this had worked out well as he placed his hand on her shoulder. He said that Frederick was too dangerous to just leave alone as the stitches on his neck started opening and showing in a situation like this would make it memorable, telling her to watch closely. As Eugene Magic Academy's first student, her teacher was holding her Grand Mage curriculum orientation, summoning a magic rune made from his own flesh in his hand. A was stunned. Seeing the flesh circle with a mouth and an eye, she wondered what kind of bizarre rune it was. She asked Eugene if it was really magic, saying that she had never even heard of a rune shaped like this before. Eugene explained that it was indeed magic. Since Ain was completely defenseless right now, he was casting this so she did not get caught up in that old man's magic. Making another flesh circle, Eugene cast 2 rune magic. As the mouths of the circles began glowing, A was suddenly covered with light, as an all-attribute full-body protection magic covered her. Eugene told her that it was still dangerous, so she should step back. After which he asked Ain if she had any idea how much mana that spell just used. Ain said that she had an idea of it. Aegis was the protection spell she always kept up during battles after all. But Eugene told her that the correct answer was not even a drop. Completely shocking her, he told her not to worry too much about her heart's mana disappearing, as even her teacher had 0 mana in his heart as well, saying that what he was about to show her now and teach her from here on out was how to use magic without mana. Ugjan then ran off to fight Frederick, as Ain thought about how in a situation like this, he was saying something that made no sense, wondering if they could really win like this. Looking at Eugene, Frederick analyzed that he was a close-range type, but he did not look defenseless enough to rush in. He had heard that Eugene was Jung's disciple, so he had to have something he was confident in, thinking that for now he would just watch and see what he does. Eugene then created 2 more flesh runes, casting the 2 rune magic binding vine rope at Frederick. Frederick defended himself from the attack with a barrier, but his barrier suddenly started cracking. As Eugene put more pressure, the barrier started to bend, finally breaking apart as he grabbed hold of him with his vines, shocking Frederick. He was amazed to see that the barrier she had not been able to budge with her high-powered spells had suddenly broken with a basic spell like that. Frederick was amused to see Eugene's solid spell structure, thinking that it was way better than even Jung Ui Hook's shoddy work. Ugjan then raised his other hand, preparing to cast another spell by making a new rune. But Frederick broke free from his vines. Rushing behind Eugene with a spell, he said that his attack wasn't nearly good enough to provoke him like that, tearing Ugjan's head off again with his flames. But seeing as the flesh had already started to form around his hand, he remembered how Eugene had grown his head back after the first time he had blown it off. He said that this was a bit shocking, as regeneration magic that could repair damage to this extreme was pretty rare, asking if this was what Eugene was banking on. A thought how Eugene's regeneration was disgustingly unstoppable, remembering their fight. But she was still worried that his opponent was the great mage Frederick, thinking that he might find a way somehow. Frederick then shoved his hand into Eugene's back, saying that it was not his first time seeing it. Nothing like an invincible immortal existed without a weakness. There was always a core at the center of the regeneration or some kind of limit point. So he will just disintegrate his body from the inside down to the molecular level and reconstruct it all messed up to break his regeneration algorithm. But then Frederick was shocked, asking Eugene what he was grabbing as Eugene grinned, holding the magic Frederick was casting itself. The black lightning was a chemical reaction caused by mana. The moment it touched anything, it should melt both matter and mana alike into scattered molecules. So he couldn't just grab it like he was pulling weed. thinking what kind of insane magic Eugene was using as he turned back and smiled at him with a hole still in his chest. But Frederick did not give up, casting more black lightning at Eugene's body, thinking that he would just melt and scatter everything and then counter it. But Eugene regenerated again, grabbing hold of Frederick's arm. Frederick smiled at Eugene, explaining that all he was grabbing onto was the 12 layers of high-density protection spells around his entire body. He asked Eugene if breaking his barrier had him all excited, saying that he might feel like he was grabbing his arm, but he was touching nothing. However, Eugene just smiled. As Frederick was gloating about how it was like groping at the outer wall of a nuclear bunker with his bare hands, Eugene broke through his spells, melting his arm away. Frederick was stunned to see that this had happened. Seeing his body melt away, he raised his other arm while gritting his teeth, as he chopped his arm off, surprising Eugene. Eugene said that it must hurt, asking Frederick if he really had to cut it off and not just leave it. Frederick was panicking. Even when he had fought Young-woo Hyuk, his defense had never been pierced this pathetically, wondering just what kind of magic Eugene was using. Eugene then called out to Ayn. He said that he wanted to show her more mana, less magic, but he just did not have the leeway right now, saying that for now he would briefly explain the ones he had shown properly. Changing the shape of his arm, he said that she had seen this one earlier today. The ability to freely alter one's own body's form and composition, and even to transform other objects that touched one's hands. Strictly speaking, it was not magic, but the name of the technique she would learn from now on was the magic used without runes, Murin magic. Frederick shot off another spell at Eugene. To him, he and his magic were both disgusting. Since earlier he had this feeling, while fighting off against Eugene, a sensation that was gradually corroding his judgment. He wondered if it was the pain from having his arm cut off, or maybe it was the bewilderment from his opponent's unknown freakish magic. Casting a high-tier spell, Frederick threw multiple fire golems at Eugene as they all jumped at him, pinning him down as they tried to burn his body. Ever since he had faced off against Eugene, as time passed, the inexplicable revulsion had risen from inside. He wondered if it was disgust, the feeling of something that shouldn't be tangled getting all twisted up. It was like facing something that shouldn't exist in this world right in front of him as he saw Eugene regenerate again and again, giggling at his attacks with Frederick, shouting at him to stop, wondering if what he was feeling was fear. AI was pushed back, seeing the destruction the fight between these two was causing. Frederick was now gasping, unable to believe what was happening. Looking at Eugene's body join itself together again after all he had done, he could not believe that he, Frederick Gamora, was losing to some disciple of Young-woo Hyuk, to this inexplicable monster as Eugene grabbed hold of him, tearing through his chest as he took out his heart, pinning Frederick down. Eugene said how it was hilarious. He apologized to Frederick, saying that in this state, the more magic he used, the more his brain itched. So he couldn't help laughing. Looking at them, A wondered if the fight was over. Seeing the two floating over a pit of lava with Eugene's hand going through Frederick's body, holding his heart. Even though he had said it confidently, she still had her doubts, unable to believe that Eugene had defeated Frederick. Frederick said that he had never thought he would get to see his own heart out of his body in his lifetime, asking if Eugene would believe that he had let his guard down. Eugene said that he did not specialize in combat, so he wouldn't know. But if Frederick said so, then he would believe it. Frederick said that seeing him spout snarky lines to the bitter end proved that he was Young's disciple. He still remembered it. One gesture from that old man and the city crumbled. Amid the screams of people burning in the fiery ruins, he was someone who should not be allowed to use magic, saying that he would have to end the mage Frederick right here. Frederick Rick told him to go and act all high and mighty, as he had earned that right, raising his hand. Since he had won this time, he was giving him a souvenir, a war trophy, as he cut off his own heart in Eugene's hand. Eugene was shocked to see this, realizing that right before cutting out the heart, he had pumped all the heart's mana into his bloodstream at once. Frederick called out to someone named Shawi. Eugene lunged at him, thinking that he was way too dangerous. But a portal suddenly appeared above Frederick as a hand popped out, dragging Frederick away as multiple other portals cut Eugene's body into pieces. Eugene was stunned, realizing that it was spatial magic as he tried to join himself together. A woman appeared beside Frederick, saying how he had said that he was going to meet Young UK, but the monster back there was not Young. Seeing that he was missing an arm and his heart, she was worried about the mess. Shia said that she would escort him back home, but Frederick stopped her, saying that thanks to Eugene, he had come to some realizations. And as a thanks, there was something he wanted to test out. With Eugene rushing towards them, Frederick started chanting a spell as he activated a 3-rune magic, unleashing the spell as he cut through Eugene's head. Eugene stopped in his tracks, shaking. Frederick laughed at how he didn't do this often, thanking Eugene for an unexpected big haul. As he and Shia got into the portal, he told Eugene that he would set up a bigger and more fun stage next time, saying that they would have a proper rematch. Laughing as the two got away with Eugene wiping the blood off his face, A asked him if it was over, saying how they had run away. She still couldn't believe that Eugene had chased away the strongest battle mage, saying how it was impossible without borrowing a grand mage's power. Eugene just said that luck was on his side and Frederick had his guard down, thinking how it was a good thing that it had ended before the time was up. A told Yugjun not to be humble as he had won. She had known that he was amazing before, but now with his maroon magic, he was on a whole different level. Putting his hand on her shoulder, he assured her that he was going to teach her all that he could do, and beyond that. For as the disciple of the greatest Grand Mage, he will make her the second greatest Grand Mage. But until then, she had to promise him that she would not get into trouble like she had today, and that she would cherish her life. Smiling at him, Ain realized how he hadn't changed at all in 14 years, promising to listen to him as she took his finger. Back at the house, a man said over the phone that Frederick had appeared. They had investigated massive battle traces from magic in the mountains outside Seoul. Fortunately, no civilians had been harmed. As the man on the phone was about to say who his opponent was, the person guessed that it was probably Ayn. Thinking how she had gone after all, wondering that even if he had known, would he be able to stop her? Saying that as her father, he did not need her to prove herself with her life. But the man then interrupted him, explaining that during the fight between Ayn and Frederick, Eugene had intervened, driving away Frederick and making sure that Ayn was safe. This shocked Jung as he questioned in a confused tone,